Well, the Queensland LNP state government has signed a special accord with councils in Indigenous communities, giving them special access to government ministers. A newly signed accord gives 17 First Nations councils a process by which they can advise state cabinet directly on issues like housing, water access and sewage treatment. Joining me now is Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Partnership Minister Fiona Simpson. Fiona, thanks for coming on the program. Let me just ask the question everybody is asking. Is this the Voice 2.0?
Oh, James, it's the complete opposite of the Voice. It's completely not like that. What we are doing is working with democratically elected local councils, local mayors and a democratically elected state government. And we're doing the same thing that we're doing with other rural and remote communities, councils in Queensland. So it is absolutely opposite of the Voice. It's about practical consultation at the grassroots with people who are on the ground as elected officials delivering for their local communities.
So let me understand this. You've signed two accords, as I understand it, one with rural and regional councils that gives them similar access, cutting through the bureaucracy straight to ministers.
Absolutely. And I think...
And you've signed another accord with Indigenous councils.
Correct. And it's very similar. It's the same thing.
So here's my question. Why a special one with Indigenous councils? I presume those Indigenous councils are regional and rural. So why not just have one agreement with regional and rural councils rather than one that's race-based?
They're achieving the same thing with consultation. And what we find with our rural and remote Indigenous councils, particularly those that are very remote, they do address things such as housing and water and frontline services. So it is the same accord. It's the same type of process with consultation. So we are working with them, helping them as they build capacity, as they deliver on frontline services. And we're very much about tangible, practical outcomes. And I think the response we got also from our rural and remote councils, the general councils, when Anne Lay, the minister, signed their compact in August, was that they didn't see a lot of the previous government. We're practical. We're about overcoming the tyranny of distance, as well as the barriers of bureaucracy.
So here's what I'm still not understanding. If it's about the tyranny of distance, why two accords, one with non-Indigenous councils and another with Indigenous councils? Why not just one accord that achieves all the same purposes with regional and rural councils?
Well, we're already meeting with these councils, but they also have their own groups. As you would appreciate, across rural and regional Queensland, you'll also have regional groups of councils as well who work together. Some of them have joint service delivery. And these are the arrangements that local government has in place in Queensland. And we are about working with local government. So this is an
I'm still just
practice.
Not understanding why Indigenous councils get a special accord that's exactly the same as the regional and rural councils. Why one that's race-based?
You already have local councils that get together. They have their own groups where they come together and they have joint service delivery in some circumstances where they jointly work together with upskilling and delivering of services. So this is on the basis of these communities who we work in partnership with local government. So these are their arrangements that we work in partnership. So they have
about Indigenous communities or non-Indigenous? Indigenous
and non-Indigenous. So with local government, with the Local Government Association of Queensland, who we have also signed an agreement with regard to access. This is about consultation, James. And there are some very remote areas.
I don't want to be rude and cut you off, but I'm still not understanding why is there a special accord with Indigenous councils?
Because there is a group of Indigenous elected mayors. These are elected mayors of these communities who already meet. Now, you may be familiar with Tika, who predominantly has the Cape, and they have a lot of the same issues. And they already have their own group of mayors.
But wouldn't non-Indigenous mayors have the same issues if they're remote and rural as well?
There are issues with closing the gap in rural and remote areas around some of the health outcomes with housing. So, James, I'll give you a bit of an idea. What we've found is that why it's been so well received, not only with Indigenous mayors, but with other non-Indigenous councils, is that they weren't getting access to the previous government to overcome the bureaucracy. This has been a response to what they've asked for.
The LNP obviously scrapped treaty, scrapped truth-telling.
Absolutely.
by setting up a special accord for Indigenous councils, it's exactly the same as the accord for regional and rural councils. Is this a sop to the Indigenous communities to say, hey, we cancelled treaty and truth-telling, but we still want to do something for Indigenous people?
Complete opposite,
That's what
James.
It sounds like.
No, because when you're going into rural and regional areas, and I appreciate when you travel into your most remote areas, it can be 1,000 kilometres north of Cairns. And they'll often have shared services that they deliver together. They have a lot of the shared issues that other communities may not have. You also have things such as the alcohol management plans. So there are other overlays that other councils don't have. But this has been a response from the local government Association of Queensland, and working in partnership. It's about better consultation. It's overcoming the bureaucracy. It's about ensuring that people wherever they live have access to ministers. So they have existing networks that are trying to overcome some of the biggest disadvantages in our state.
68% of Queenslanders voted against the voice. I was looking at a Courier Mail poll this morning. 85% of respondents to that poll think that this new agreement you've created is a Voice 2.0. Has this been badly communicated to people that they're confused about it?
Look, that was complete misreporting, because it was never a voice like Albanese. It was about a consultation mechanism, the same as our rural and remote councils are getting and have signed in their compact. And so, to be quite clear, no new body, no changes to the Constitution. These are elected officials. It's about getting tangible, practical outcomes in local communities. These are about local leaders in their local communities, not them in other communities, in their local communities. And some of these areas where there are housing issues, where you can have 12 to 13 people in one house. Now, they are practical issues that these councils are dealing with, and we're working with them to acknowledge they haven't had the opportunity of being able to buy their own home. That is very different from down here in southeast Queensland. So it's about the same opportunities, it's about the same democratic power of your vote. It's about overcoming bureaucracy. It is not about Albanese's new set-up voice. And I think, unfortunately, that article did mislead people, because it was always about consultation. And I think, James, what I found very interesting is that the feedback I've had from Indigenous mayors is, oh, goodness me, this is not the federal government's voice. They're saying that because they know they, like other councillors in Queensland, want to see better outcomes in their community, less bureaucracy, more tangible outcomes.
Fiona Simpson, I appreciate you explaining it to me. Thanks.